Welcome back to the Artist Talk series. I'm Mike and I run the Spray Days YouTube channel. Today, we've got a very special guest who blows minds with his insane portrait murals and intricate stencil work in the studio. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about his work and travels. So let's get straight into it. And let me introduce to you, Nils. How's it going, mate?
So it's all right. Everything considering in America,
For sure. How is the situation right now over there?
I mean, you guys can see it. I'm pretty sure clear enough. It's a dumpster fire, man. Yeah, I was in DC on a wall when all that bullshit went down.
Yeah,
So that was
I
that
spoke
was
to you
sobering.
on
And
your
then,
Instagram.
yeah,
It just looked crazy, man. I was going to ask, what was
yeah.
it like being present there, and what was the whole feeling and everything?
I mean, I wish I could say it was something I wasn't used to, but it's like a feeling that you've just felt all year in America, man. It's just been crazy all year, and like I grew up around DC, so I'm used to seeing tons of cops and police and stuff. And I was there for Obama's inauguration, and that was like insane. Looked like a horror movie or something.
Totally.
So the mornings we would drive in, we had to drive through downtown to get to the wall, and like they set this whole perimeter up, and we saw these police and these crazy armored, vehicles, and we're like, oh well, yeah, they're prepping for this crazy shit. And then I finished the wall and started to drive home, and my brother called me. He's like, hey, they just got into the Capitol, and I was like, no freaking way, like no way, that's crazy. Like,
Insane. It's like a movie watching it from over here. It keeps getting crazier and crazier.
yeah. Well, it's crazy because like I mean, my city went really buck this summer. Like that was crazy, and the police
Yeah.
went crazy, and it was nuts. And it's like I saw more response on an average day in Richmond, Virginia, than we saw in DC on that day. And I was like,
Mind blowing.
that was really, yeah, that was sad. And then driving down from DC on the way out of there, just like seeing just FBI like pouring up the highway, and it's like it's just you feel like you're at the end of a really bad movie.
So what's the current climate there right now? So are you just sort of all locked indoors, or is there still protesting and everything going on? Or
I mean, it's a big country, so where I am feels fine. On Monday, there's the big. Uh, this is such an American thing to have to say. On Monday, there's the big gun rally that there is every year in Richmond. It's Lobby Day or whatever at the Capitol, but they've made it a big gun thing every year.
ah,
Um, and that just kind of overlaps with a bunch of other groups you don't want to deal with, and everyone's kind of a little on edge. And the governor was just on the radio talking about like, if you're coming here with ill intent in your heart, you got to turn around and go home now. And it's like, man,
it's
it's so
sad.
messed up. But that's just like right down the street. So I don't know.
It's
You just kind
sad.
of live with it. Yeah.
You've got to go. You've got to cope, man. And what have you been doing to cope? I mean, art's obviously a great escape. Have you been delving into that world to sort of take your mind away?
So, like brief overview, I live in Richmond, and in Richmond used to be the capital of the Confederacy for like the Civil War. So people use Richmond as like a weird kind of standing point for that.
Okay.
And there's all these monuments to Confederate generals that they like took down this summer, and that's been a whole flashpoint. My
Sure.
studio is on Monument Ave, so my studio is like like I can look out my window and see a lot of these monuments. So
Wow.
it's like all summer, every day, every night was just crazy shit on Monument Ave. So like you can't not you like can't not avoid it. So I was just like every night I was like, I just got to
Coming
go out
home.
there. Like I just got to see. Like I got to go out there with my camera and see what was going on. And like so I took a lot of pictures over the summer for that. And I think that was an easy way to kind of like process and filter through everything that was going on. It like kind of it like removes you from the situation in a weird way, even though you're in it.
So
But then every now and then you just see some shit and you're like, that's so scary, man. I mean, there was so much stuff he saw this summer that was just like, that is so scary.
yeah, yeah. And we talked about taking down some monuments in there. I saw a piece that you did yourself.
Yeah.
Did you feel it was right to speak on that and just to get some more awareness on what was happening?
Yeah. I mean, this is my city, and it's like, there's a whole, like, you get into a large, like, racial discussion when you get into that. And it's like, I would never be the person to design the next monument, right? Nor should I be. But like for something temporary in this space is ripped out, I think it was good. And then immediately, like, these dudes roll up in their Confederate flag, whistling Dixie shit and then ripping it down. It was like people were getting video of these guys just savagely ripping it down. And I was like, dude, that got real crazy real fast.
Got a reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. But they got their guns, and it's just like it's just, you don't want to see it. And like we saw gunshots this summer, you know, and it's just like you saw a guy, you know, shoot each other, then the police are shooting at you. And it's just like it's
Beyond crazy.
yeah, it's done.
Did you see a positive reaction as well as obviously you got that sort of negative
Yeah, of course.
online? Did you get people sort of standing up and believing in what you were shouting for?
Yeah, of course. And in this city, especially, like the city is way on in this, right? We're just the capital of the state. So like, you know, people can come out from the boonies and come make their stand in Richmond, but it's like everyone in Richmond is like, what do you get out of here? You know, we don't want this trouble. We don't want you guys here. We don't want you there. It's just crazy. So for the most part, yeah, everyone was very supportive. And this summer it was crazy to see that many people come out for the whole Black Lives Matter like protest. Like that was really powerfully beautiful. And like obviously everyone had been locked down. Everyone was just like, we just get outside. But they've taken the Robert E. Lee monument and it's like just covered in graffiti, and they made it this really nice space. They put these gardens and stuff around it, and it's like that's been really nice, of course.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I was going to ask, is Richmond where you grew up? Is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in the DC area, so that's 2 hours north of me now. So then I moved 2 hours south to Richmond, which cool. I mean, in American terms is close. Like I'll drive up to DC for lunch, you know, kind of stuff.
Yeah. And where were you first sort of noticing street art? Was it in DC or was it in Richmond?
It'd probably be on the internet. My mom is from Belgium, so I spent a lot of like summers growing up going to Europe, and I was kind of always seeing it there.
Yeah.
And there's you know, DC and there's graffiti in DC in the States everywhere. But when it got into like kind of like proper like street art stuff, I was probably seeing that more online than anywhere else. So it was like odd to follow all that really closely. And then when I'd go to Europe in the summer or something, I'd see stuff. And I remember seeing a London police piece in Amsterdam when I was like 14 and being like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually seeing this in person. This is all this stuff I've seen on these forums and whatever. And then it was like 2012 or something when the Richmond mural project kicked off. And then all of a sudden it was like my backyard was, you know, like literally my backyard was aryz and Roa and all these Pixel Pancho and all these people that I had known online and seen online and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And Roa is from the same city in Belgium that my mom's from. So I went up and was speaking Flemish to him and he was like, that's crazy. And it was just like a very much like, these people are very normal and everything. They watched them do it. I was like, I could do this. So that was really like the first time I'd seen it in the States, any of that.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, what was it about street art that drew you in initially? What appealed to yourself?
I don't know. I mean, I was real into graffiti in middle school. I think it's just kind of like the Robin Hood aspect of it. You know, there's something about like just breaking the law for something that is not like selfish gain, you know, like there's just something about it that appeals to me. I don't know. But I was pretty taken immediately with graffiti and stencils and stuff like that. And it just has never stopped.
Yeah. And when those guys sort of started painting in your hometown, is that when you started getting involved yourself or?
I mean, I had been doing graffiti a long time, but as far as like proper murals, I worked on a stage in high school. So I was doing like stage sets, and looking back now, I'm like, oh, that was totally just murals. But at the time, I really didn't think of it like that.
Yeah.
But it's something I'd always been interested in. But when they came and I was watching them do it, you know, I asked them a few questions and stuff, and I was hanging out with them. But I was just watching them do it for a while, and I was like, this looks really easy. You know, I was like, I could do this. You know, why the hell not? So then after that was really when I kind of was like, I'm gonna really do like my wall. I'm gonna do my first mural, and like, so yeah, I would say it was after that was the real impetus. But I'd been doing it and just didn't really think about it. So.
And when you were writing graffiti, was it Nils, or was that a name that came around with the muralism?
No, yeah, that's Nils is my real name. So, yeah, Nils is my real name. Yeah. So I started kind of doing stencil stuff pretty early, and I was working with a gallery like really young. I was like 13 or 14 doing the stencil stuff.
No way.
So they were kind of they were using my name. I didn't have the foresight to use a pseudonym back then. So then I kind of adopted the butterfly as like, you know, I kind of signed everything with the butterfly instead of my real name. So it was like a degree of separation. But the graffiti stuff was just totally unrelated. Yeah.
Right. And when you started this painting and started your ventures, was it always portraits of people that you were painting, or?
Yeah. I think I've always kind of done. I'm trying to think. The first stencil I ever cut was Stalin. It was it was like a history textbook, and it was like the picture was so high contrast that it looked like a stencil, and I was like, I'm going to try this, you know. So I remember just like scanning it out and like cutting it out. And I was like, oh, all right.
That was going to be my
not
next.
that I had any attached to Stalin or anything.
No,
It
of
was just
course,
the picture
of course.
looked, you know, very much like. I was like, it worked though. I
was-
still have it. I found the stencil not long ago. I still have it in my studio.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I was going to ask sort of how do you come up with the reference for what you're using? How do you choose which subjects to paint or the people that you paint?
Yeah. I mean, originally I was just like trawling the internet and I was doing a lot of police related work and like I was just like doing a bunch of authority kind of stuff, these crazy police. And it's funny because I was like 17 or 18 and I was like, I can't be pissed off the rest of my life. I got to start doing something else. And then when this summer came around, my dad was calling me. He's like, we have all these paintings at the house that seems like you were really onto something there, you know? But I started kind of after a while, I was like, I have to take my own pictures. You know, I didn't feel like it didn't feel genuine enough to be using other people's pictures. And I was just surrounded by my friends. So I was taking pictures of my friends and all my friends were in photography school. So they all could give me pictures as well.
Perfect.
So when I went on the road the first time there, I was just like, had a source, just a deep folder of a ton of pictures of my friends. I could just pick one when I got to a wall and go. Yeah. But then that got kind of like, I mean, it's not saccharine, but I was just like, it was just like a way to exercise more than anything else. Then I was like, I guess I'll start putting a little more forethought into this.
Totally, man. Totally. And with your stencils, have you always used stencils? Did you ever paint freehand first or did you go straight in for the stencil?
As far as like studio stuff, I've always done the stencils.
What was it that appealed to you about that?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I cut my first stencil when I was like 12. I think part of it was like, oh, it's like graffiti, but you can do something much more detailed, much more quick. And something that was interesting in the replication.
Yeah.
And then I think the actual process at this point of cutting is such a like average. It was just such a integrated part of my mental health that it's like, I don't know how to not do that anymore. Right. Like I have been cutting stencils every day since like my adolescence. Right. I'm 28 now. And it's like, I started doing it when I was 12 and it's like, I just like but that's an important period of time as well. Like that is your development. And my entire development, I've been cutting stencils. So it's like my concept of the world, like that's intrinsic to how I have lived for as long as I can remember.
Totally. And did the skill just come with practice or was there any sort of breakthrough points where you felt that your work was really advancing?
I'm sure there's little like mileposts along the way, and I still feel like that. I'm trying to get more into full color now, and every time I pull one of those off, I'm like, wow, that was dope. But in reality, I mean, I got to be, 20,000-30,000 hours in the stenciling that it's like you do it that much, you're just gonna get better. Like,
yeah, for sure. And how long for say one piece sort of would it take you on an average to cut?
Yeah, these days it's I've been telling myself, like, I gotta do more smaller things so I can do them in like 2 or 3 days. And every time I do, I'm like, oh, that was fun. I did that in like a day and a half,
Yeah.
I should do that more. But in reality, I tell that to myself. And then, the project I have on my desk right now is 6 by 3 feet or something. And, all these it's this organ with, 400 keys or whatever. And I've got every little hand text on the keys. And I'm like, why did I told myself I wasn't going to do this and I'm doing it again.
Just making it hard for yourself.
Yeah. So people ask me that a lot hour wise. And I haven't, one time when I did some stuff in England with the graffiti street people, I was like, I'm going to keep track of my hours on this piece so I know exactly how long it took. Yeah. And I remember that was like 24 by 30, or it was like 50 by 65 centimeters or something, I want to say. And it took 117 hours or something like that.
Wow.
That was a really detailed one. I'm thinking of the map. When I cut the map of London, I cut like this big map of London that was like a meter wide in every street or whatever. And it was 117 hours. I was like, all right.
Very labor intensive.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't, like, I don't think of it in the sense of time or whatever. It's just like, people, how long does this take? And I'm like, this takes like two seasons of Seinfeld and an audiobook, like that's what this takes, like I just go in and I just do it for X until I'm tired for the day and come back. And when the piece is done, it's done. Like,
yeah, totally. And how important is the originality when you're thinking of themes and stuff to do? You said about this organ and stuff like that. How important is it to be original as such when you're thinking of a concept? Do you take that into consideration?
I mean, every now and then I'll see something from someone else or something in a movie. I'll see something that's like, oh, that's a great image. That really inspires me, and then I'll go into the process of making something that inspires. And in those cases, I'll be like, okay, I can't just recreate this image exactly right. Like I need to add my own twist to this. Like I'm
For
getting
sure.
a little too close into that. But other than that, I just like, I get ideas as I think about it. Just things will pop in my head, or I'll see something that kind of gives me a flash or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I just don't really think about it. I just go fast. And then before I know it, I'm like, I probably should think about it more and like plan which one I'm going to choose, because I'll just like very quickly dive into a project will take
Lost.
me like a month and a half to do.
Yeah,
Right. So
for
I'll be like, oh,
sure.
that's a good idea. I'll just do that. And
For
then I'll
sure.
just be like, all right, well, here's the next month and a half of my life, as opposed to being like, maybe I should wait a week in case I get a different idea. And that's a better one.
Another question I was going to ask on that sort of same topic, do you ever get like a mental block when you're creating so much work and it takes so long? Do you ever just get a block and you have to have a break away for a few days?
No,
Oh,
no, I don't. That's like my main motivator in work is pretty much just guilt anyway, right? Like I just feel bad when I don't. So it's like, I just kind of have to. And like so much of like the creative aspect of like, what's this going to take to do, the planning of every stencil happens first. And then the vast majority of it, 98% of it is just sitting and cutting. So there's not much creativity going on right there. It's just mindless labor.
yeah,
So it's like, as long as I can have a good idea that I can come to every, 3 or 4 weeks before I start another piece, then I'm fine.
yeah. Keeps the juices flowing.
Yeah.
That's great, mate. That's great. And we spoke before about you traveling to Europe. When did you begin
Yeah.
traveling to Europe to paint? Because that's where I came into contact with your work was, I think, in Amsterdam or Belgium.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
seems to be quite a lot of work around Europe. So when did that all begin?
I went to Australia in 2015 when I was still in school.
Oh, wow.
I did that for like 2 or 3 months. And that was my first, like, I'm going to try and travel and paint and just do that.
Sick.
And then that just worked. So I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't that hard. I could continue to do this.
Yeah.
So I came back and I was still in school at that point. And then I graduated and I had a one-way ticket 2 days after I graduated to Amsterdam. And I was like, I'm just going to go figure it out. Like I'll see what happens. I can come back. And I was going with some friends. We're doing a little trip for like 2 weeks or whatever. And then they were going home and it was me and I had no other plans.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 weeks later, we're in Amsterdam again. They get on the train in Central and they're gone. And then I remember being like, what the hell do I do now? Having the real kind of shock. And I went to a coffee shop and then I was like, figure something out.
Nice.
Yeah. And then that worked for 6 months. I just did a different city every week for like 6 months. And I would just go, that's when I met, Bust and all those people as well in Amsterdam. And then they're like, talk to this guy. As I did this wall in, Berlin, you should talk to these people. And I just kind of bounced around and they would say, talk to this guy. And I just dotted around like that as much as I could.
Yeah. Were you just going where there was a wall or were you going
Yeah.
somewhere anyway and then you found a wall while you were there?
A little bit of both, but I mainly just went wherever there was a wall. And it was like I'd be in Prague and then I was like, oh, well, Graz isn't very far and I know I could do something there. So I'd go to Graz and then they'd be like, you should talk to this guy in Bratislava. We're only 2 or 3 hours. And I'd be like, well, all right, fuck it. I'll go to Bratislava. Like,
It's cool how it just rolls up into one big travel. Like,
yeah. And that was like 6 months. And then, it's a week since you've heard your own voice and you're getting kind of burnt out. And I was like, I'm going back to America. But in that process, I had won this fellowship from back home, which was, not a ton of money, but it paid my rent for like 6 months.
oh, nice.
Right. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try this art thing full time, at least until this fellowship runs out. I'll pay my rent down flat for 6 months. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And now it's been like 7 years. So yeah.
Dream come true, man. Dream come true.
Yeah, it's working. Knock on wood.
Is there any cities that you haven't been able to get to yet, maybe that you'd love to paint?
Done. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to go anywhere in Asia, period. I'd like to do anything. South America, there's a lot of American cities I've never been to. I'd like to do shit in. I've never painted in New York.
So big. So
Yeah,
big.
I've never painted Chicago. I've never painted New York. I've done little walls in San Francisco, but I'd like to do like a big one. Canada. I had a big thing. I was going to drive all the way through Canada this year and do a bunch. And like Canada just appeals to me. I don't know. It's a nice
Got
peaceful
some
America.
awesome things like Vancouver Mural Fest and stuff. They've got
Yeah.
some huge projects going on. My brother lives
Yeah.
just outside.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of them as well. So I'd like to do all that. Trying to think, I'd like to do something. Everyone would like to do something big in Amsterdam, but it's so historical that it's like hard to get something. And I have some decent sized ones, but they're on the outskirts and they're kind of old. And now I look at them, I'm like, I could do something better than that, you know?
Oh man, I love some of them pieces. But like you say, in Amsterdam, it is quite like that. The city centre itself, it's really sparse. You sort of have to go off to the left, off to the right, and get out of the way to find it. And with them, you did some great collabs while you're out there as well.
Sure.
Is that an important part to your work, collaborating with other artists?
Yeah, it's just fun. It takes a lot of the kind of stress off, and it's like just a much funner way to work in general. And it's just like a good way to get to know someone, you know? Like it's like I think of the walls as largely like a sport, you know, and it's like I mean, really, it feels more like a sport. It's more like this physical activity, and like I have 3 days in this city, and we got to bang this wall out. What can we do? And like to do that with another person. Sports are usually more fun with someone else, right? So it's like
the camaraderie.
that is always a grand time, yeah.
And when you're painting city murals in different cities, do you think it's important to connect that mural to the local area that you're painting in?
I mean, it depends on what kind of work, right? Like when I did Kosovo not last summer was a joke, but the summer before that, like that was like that had to be related to that area, and like they brought us out to do work, you know, under that topic, but it was like some things like that. It's very nice when you can tie it, right? And I've done a lot of pieces where you can tie it somehow directly to it, but I'm also not religious about it. I think some people are like, well, this mural has to be related to this, you know, whatever, and it's like I don't think it has to be, you know, like it's like a native plant argument, right? You should only plant native plants or whatever. And it's like, that's great, but I'd still like to see that crazy, you know, tropical flower in the greenhouse over there, you know,
it's
that
like
I'm not going to see it.
It's like food as well. People sort of eat all these different cultures' food, and everyone wants a different influence, you know. You don't want everything from your doorstep.
Right. And it's like if I'm in, you know, France, do I want to eat some authentic French food that's really great? Of course. Yeah, dope. But that being said, am I not going to eat some incredible Italian that there's a restaurant out there or something? No, like it's just different. There's when it is nice, I think it's an extra bonus, but I don't think it has to be.
Yeah. Do you ever worry that your murals won't be well received?
Nah, I don't care. I kind of live for the fight, honestly. If someone wants to pick, I'll go for it. Yeah, I get real. If someone's going to get in my face about it, I can get really antsy about it.
If you ever run into that situation, if you ever sort of had to redesign or somebody's blanked out a mural or...
I haven't really had to redesign. I've definitely gone into large arguments. Actually, well, with the Kosovo one, they hit me up and they were like, the theme of this, you know, event is tolerance. So I was like, all right. So I was talking to them and I had this big image of two women kissing. And they were like, yeah, you can't do that, dude. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, people are not going to tolerate that. And I was like, the theme is tolerance. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they were like, this is the Baltics, dude. Like, you really can't do that. And I was like, this makes me want to do it way more. You know, what do you come on? But they were like, well, the theme is like interethnic, you know, between the Albanians and the Serbs. And like, that's really why we're doing this. And I was like, all right, you should have like described that a little more, but I still kind of wish I had done that, you know, because
you could
anyway. Yeah, I mean, it was tough, but like the Kosovo one was tough, you know, and they weren't happy about that because I did like this like chimeric, the Albanian crest is two black eagles and the Serbian one is two white ones. So I did this like chimeric black and white eagle. And they were like, what, you cannot fucking paint a Serbian eagle here. Are you kidding me? And I were like, no, like, but people got really into it. And it was like my family, you know, I watched the Serbians kill my entire family. And I was like, oh, like I'm way out of my element, man. I wanted to be doing these women kissing. Like this is a much more salient argument. And it's like, this isn't my country. This isn't my city. Like, I know why I'm doing this and I believe why I'm doing this. And there are people here that are telling me this is a good idea to do this. But it's still like this, you know, this guy's still telling me that he watched the Serbians rape and kill his entire family. So it's like, what do you tell that guy?
You can never win. You can never win.
Right. So I was like, that was heavy. But that's also, I mean, it was important as well. You know, that dude will never get over that. Period. I mean, that dude will never get over that war. And it's like the generation below him, they have to, right? Like that war's over.
Yeah.
So they were very much like, I get why you're doing this, but these, you know, these people, like you got to understand, like, they're not going to be like chill about this.
I guess the battle that they're trying to fight over there with promoting street art in Kosovo is the moment. He's trying to break them barriers and just understand, if you're getting artists in, they create beautiful art. Leave them to it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, also, to be fair, like, they brought us in specifically to do work about that. Right. So it's like, you know, ultimately that was a fight that the organizers had to take.
Yeah.
But stuff like that matters. But a lot of the time it's just people, some crusty old boomers, like, I don't like this. I think this is my block and I think I should be able to have whatever I want. And it's like, I would love to enter that argument, man. Like,
yeah,
let's go into it.
Totally. And what's the feel in your area at the moment? I mean, is there a lot of murals there? Is it being pushed, street art, or?
Yeah, Richmond has a lot. I mean, I have, for my city, I got more than anyone else, which I'll proudly, you know, I definitely have more than anyone else. Like, this is my city. But definitely, like, the last 5 years, I see names pop up and I'm like, who the hell is that? Like, there used to be like 5 of us here, you know, maybe, and every wall was one of us. And then now in the last couple of years, you see people who are like, who is that? And there was this big mural project this summer where they got a bunch of people in the town to do walls about the whole Black Lives Matter protest, just everything going on in America for this summer. And everyone on the roster, like, I knew like a third of them, and the rest I was like, I literally never heard of these people. I've never seen this work anywhere.
That's cool.
You know, so like, yeah, that's nice. It's not a big city, so part of me is like, where are you painting these walls? Because I've never seen any of them, right? You know. And then some, there's just like, that's amazing, man. Like, it's wild that you've been undercover this long.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, who are you a fan of? I mean, some emerging artists or even just obvious ones?
Yeah, I mean, I love the ETAM guys. I really love the ETAM guys. Yeah, I just, anything like that. Sebas Velasco, I was in Kosovo with him, and I was like, that stuff is really nice. And he's just like a funny guy.
Such a good feel to the work. It's so nostalgic. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. I'm trying to think of other, like, there's just like so many muralists that are so good. Obviously for stencils, I love like the snik people. I can see your print behind you. Yeah, I'm trying to get them to do a collab with me, and they want to do a wall and I want to do a stencil. I'm like, people don't think of me as a stencil artist, right? They think of me as a wall artist, and it's like, I'm way better at the stencil. I want to do a stencil thing with you.
Yeah.
They seem pretty determined to want to do a wall.
Yeah. And the walls you're painting, I take it you don't use stencils for that.
No.
You're free spraying those.
Yeah. I did the first 2, I did stencils, and I was like, that is such a waste of time. And like, so you need so much space. And like, I couldn't even imagine having to do it on the road. And yeah, I can show up and like, I can get a wall this afternoon and go and paint it right now. And with a stencil, that just wouldn't be possible.
What's the method for doing a wall for yourself? Is it sort of a doodle grid and then sketching out, filling in, or?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, all the images start the same. Like, an image I would use to stencil or an image I would paint a wall with, it's the same thing. Like, I same pictures, the same process. I break the shades down the same way. It's just on a wall, it's large enough that I can just paint all that with my hands. So I do. Right. Whereas a stencil, if it's like, I'm painting someone's head and it's this big, I can't. I'd rather just cut it with this finey blade, and then you can replicate it as well. But replicating the walls, like, that seems like it's never going to happen, right? And it's been admirable to see snik do projects where they like use the stencil and really use it as a stencil and replicate the image a couple of times throughout it, and it's like, that's neat, that's cool. But it's just such a mess and such a pain, and the wind is such a joke, and it's not for me for the walls.
It seems like a nightmare, especially if traveling abroad with sort of rolls and rolls. And if something goes missing, your whole wall's just falling to pieces now.
Yeah, or it rains or something. And I remember Logan Hicks did that big wall down at the Bowery, and then it like rained and we ruined all his stencils. And I was like, no way. And then he came back next week and did it. And that was also a moment for me where I was like, how the hell did you cut those stencils that fast? And then that's when I learned to use this machine. And I was kind of disappointed after that forever. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, is that laser cutting the stencils?
Yeah.
And
I mean, ask me when I'm at Logan's age if I'm,
if you're doing the same.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but I was disappointed. And I remember I met him and I figured out talking to him about it that I was like, how did you recut those so fast? He's like, oh, like the machine cut it. And I was just like, oh, And he got kind of pissed off. Like you could tell, like just in my reaction, he was like, well, it's like this whole, and I was like, I
Really
didn't mean
defensive.
to judge, man. Like, yeah. And I was like, I'm really sorry, man. I just like, yeah, just
Everyone's got their own technique, man. I know a few people who use like their little heat to melt the PVC sheets, that sort of thing. You're just cutting, I imagine, with a.
I've had the exact same standard number 11 X-Acto handle for my entire life. It's the only one I've ever used.
You must have been for a fair few of them blades by now.
I've got let's see. Here's a slight collection of some of them from my show a couple of years ago, and it's probably not even half of what I got here right now.
Jeez, man, I can't imagine how many cuts you've had to your fingers, man.
Not many. I really rarely actually hurt myself or cut myself. It's
precise.
Good.
yeah, that's all that matters. And how many times do you reuse a stencil? Say you were doing like a body of work. Do you use it just once, or do you maybe use it?
I try to never use it just once, because like at that point, what's the point?
Yeah.
The stuff I'm doing now is getting so intricate that the stencils just like can't take it more than a dozen sprays, if that. I mean, really, if that.
Yeah.
And like they're also getting so large that, yeah. They're getting so large, I don't really have the space to be painting these things. So it's like this piece I'm doing right now, my studio is getting pretty full up, and I'm like, unfortunately, I'm doing it for this theater that's trying to save this historical organ they have and whatnot. So I'm like, let's do it at the theater because I need the space.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to try, spray a ton of those off. And it's nice because I can always keep a copy of everything I like, right? So it's like I can sell some or get some away, but like no matter what, I can always have my copy, which is nice. Really? And then I have my deal for my studio is I get my studio for free, but I just got to give them work every now and then. So I tried when I have a nice piece, I try to give them a nice, the first spray or something to pay my rent on my studio, essentially. Yeah.
Everyone's winning.
Yeah.
But another thing I wanted to speak to you about, I noticed, was you have a huge passion for video as well and film.
Yeah.
Like, did that come around before? Was that what you went to school for?
Yeah, so I applied to art school to go for painting originally. And then the way it works here is you have to do like your first year is just you take interdisciplinary classes. So you take classes in kind of you take in sculpture and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I took the painting class and I was like, oh, I'm going to hate painting if I have to study it, and it was probably largely the professor, but I was just like, I don't want to make this something I'm going to hate,
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about film. So I was like, but I'd always been interested in it. So I was like, I'll do film, I'll just do it. Why not? Another example of just like, I'll just jump into this without really thinking about it. Yeah. And yeah, it just worked out. I liked it a lot. It's like, I think it plays into the work I do a lot more than people realize. Right. And like a lot of the stuff I do is based on photography anyway. And like my degree is in film and photography. Right. So like knowing how to use a camera is important. And a lot of the framing and everything is very, people think about walls are generally wide, right? And movies are generally wide, right? So a surprising number of walls have, are kind of built for this cinematic composition. And a lot of that kind of informs it for sure.
I was going to ask about the crossover there. Do you get sort of the same feeling out of projects, say film and art, or is it totally different pursuits for different reasons?
I wish I had more money to do film stuff, because the real problem with film is that it's just like, to do anything you want, you need other people, and working with other people is difficult, and to get other people to like really do shit, you got to pay them, and you just should pay them, let alone the cost of like different supplies and whatnot. So at this point I feel we're very frustrated with film, and like I try to do one thing a year, but it's like you can only do so much on a shoestring budget, and then it takes a lot to be like, I'm going to drop, $5 or 10 grand on this video just to do it. Right. Like I'm not making money. So if I'm dreaming of the day, someone will hit me up and be like, please direct this music video, and here's, $150,000 to get it done.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, great, I can spend every cent of that and like make something I actually really like. So it's like kind of a weird thing now.
Gear is super expensive. I mean, do you have your own gear, or are you renting that in for each job?
I have, nowadays cameras are cheap and pretty good. So it's like, I'm getting stuff that's passable, but at this point where I had to produce something else, I would want nicer stuff. That's part of the problem. So it's like, now I try to do things that are kind of unique. So like the last thing I did was all Super 8. So I was like, all right, I can limit myself by buying, it cost $1,500 or something to get 4 or 5 rolls scanned in and everything. So it's like that's $1,500 for, or it's like $800 or something for 12 minutes of footage. So I was like, all right, what can I do with, you know, that's a nice limit. That's, I'm willing to spend that to do this just for a personal project. And like I grew a couple hundred tulips for the project or whatever, and like that's fun. But at the end of the day, it's like you can only get away. There's only so many of those little things you can do to like kind of cheat the system, cheat production values there. And like I did my thesis film was this animation that took forever, and that was great. And I'd like to do that again, but it's like, ah, man, when can I afford to dedicate an entire year to this video, and for who?
It's crazy. It's a lot of time and effort.
Yeah. Yeah, it's film's a lot of, every time I've finished a film, I have felt disappointed, is what it comes down to. I'm always just like, I just wish that it'd been like, there's so much, it's just not what I want it to be. I can't control every element. I don't have the money to control every element. And so every time I'm just like, God damn it. Like,
yeah. Do you find that with your walls and art as well? Or are you very pleased?
Now when I'm done, I'm done. I'm very good, especially the walls. Like I'm fine with walking away. Yeah, there's paintings where I'm like, I could have done better, but I don't, no, it's not that same frustration. Like there's everything I look at, I'm like, I could do that better, you know? But with the film, it's very much just like, that's a dumb problem. You know, the last big film thing I did, it was like, I hired a guy to come get some drone footage, and he just like lost the footage. And it's shit like that, to where it's like, we did so much work and all of that was on that guy, and that guy just fucked it up. And then the final product, I was finishing it and I was like, this just isn't as good because we don't have that, and no one will ever know that, you know, except for me being really frustrated about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I guess you never run into that problem with your art because you just depend on yourself. So you're just doing it. Whereas with film, you've got so many moving elements. Just one thing goes wrong, throws the whole
just
thing.
Me and my space just doing it. Yeah.
It's terrible, man. It's terrible. But yeah, no, that's cool. I was really excited when I saw that you were doing film projects also. And I just wondered which way them worlds came around and how they collided. I mean, I think there's
a perfect project in which they all, the crossroads are strong, you know. It's just hasn't come yet.
Yeah, and we spoke before about collaborating, and even on film projects, like how important is that for you? Like, are you pushing yourself when you're working with different artists? Are you like really trying to step your game up?
I think it's like what it comes down to is when you're thinking about a project, or you're thinking about different angles, and you'd like to believe that like working with someone else is like, all right, normally I would do this, but I would guess that he does it this way, right? And that's what you think collaboration would be. And so seeing him do it that way will like kind of push me out of my comfort zone and make me do that. But in reality, what it is I think he'll do this, and then they do something totally different that you never considered. And then you're like, oh, that's why you should do this, because like it's so arrogant to think I would know all the answers already, that it's like to see them, you know, deal with things or handle things in a totally different way that's very valuable, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, of course you want to like, you don't want to embarrass yourself if you're working with someone else.
Definitely.
So that's important as well.
And how
but it's just fun.
How does it usually work? Do you sort of send a piece to somebody else, or are they do you do it on site together, or how does it usually come together?
Yeah, we talk in advance. It depends who you're working with. Some people want to talk it out like a lot in advance. Some people just kind of like, let's figure it out. I have a good formula right now to where it's like, it's a good system to be like, let's do this collaboration. The deal is I paint you, right? You do whatever the hell you want. We can figure out what up, but like I paint you in this collaboration. So it's like, I think it's fun. A lot of people are like, all right, that's interesting. And they can have fun with it. And they think more about how they want themselves represented. And like, it gives them a lot more leeway. Like, well, let's do this, this, and this. And the conversation happens. But in reality, the conversations are almost always pretty short. Like we figure it out pretty quick. And then we're just like, all right, let's do it. Let's go.
Is there anybody that you've not had the chance to work with that you really want to work with?
Yeah, a million. I mean, a ton of people.
Somebody specific that you think, geez, my work would just gel so well with that.
No, I don't know. That's trippy. There's a lot of people who I admire a lot that I think it like wouldn't work well. Like I've been talking to Aches a bit recently, and like we're trading each other some work. I just sent him some work. He's going to trade me some. Sick. And I love his stuff, but at the same time, like I know us working together it wouldn't work well. I think we're too similar in the things we're showing. Like I think I'd have more fun with people who do something way different, right? Like doing the stuff with Joachim, the 2 walls I've done with Joachim are great because they're just like so different. It works so well, right? And it's like that's very fun. Yeah, and it's like I kind of enjoy that. In Kosovo, asked Sebas if he would want to do something. He said, yeah. And I was like, I think that could work really cool. Like, especially because he does a lot of landscape shit. So I think it'd be really interesting for like him to deal with like a large landscape or something. Like that would be neat. Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of, it's less about the work in a lot of ways than just like people I want to spend an afternoon with or like a weekend with working on a project, right? Like it's very much like a social thing as well.
100%, 100%. And as far as people getting in touch with you about getting some work or maybe even getting a mural or something, what's the best line of getting in touch with you?
If you can find me anyway, like I'll respond, right? Like obviously people hit me up on Instagram a lot. I get a lot of emails. I feel like the actual projects that come to fruition almost always come through email. Like it's very rare that someone DMs me and it actually turns into something.
Totally.
That being said, I'm open to pretty much whatever. Obviously I'm trapped in Virginia right now, as we all are.
Do you have much coming up? Do you have any projects that people should be looking out for coming up, or is it just sort of studio work at the moment?
Yeah, I'm just grinding in the studio now. There's always walls that I'd like to do, but there's nothing like right now. It's just particularly quiet time of year, so it's like I'm really stoked on this studio stuff I'm doing right now, and I got this cabin I rented next week in the mountains. I'm gonna go out there to like really kind of like work on this project and finish it up.
Wicked.
And I'm shooting it as well. So back to film, like I'm trying to get space so I can do these nice time lapses and get nice shots of me like working on it. So like it's a nice larger space that I can set up these, cameras on cranes and shut above me to like get nice work like that.
Sick.
But as far as the big walls, yeah, who knows? It's January. They always seem to come. There's people talking to me in the Midwest a bunch of like walls in Chicago and stuff like that. But that's all. Maybe when it warms up, you can come out here, and a lot of things on the docket, but there always are, and almost none of them ever happen.
In a usual year, how much of your work is divided up, would you say, between like selling actual artwork or painting walls for murals or commissions as such?
I mean, time-wise, it's probably, I mean, just because the stencils take so long, it's probably pretty equal. As far as like number of pieces, I'm doing way more walls in a year than I'm doing stencil stuff. And as far as like my artistic income, I'm making most of my money off of walls.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find more galleries to exhibit with. And I had a big solo show in Richmond here the day the lockdown started. So I was like, I have all these flyers and shit. And that was gonna be really nice. So now I'm kind of like reaching out to people, and I'm trying to find more galleries to work with overseas. And I'm pretty fucking done with America at this point. So I'm thinking about moving to Amsterdam for a while.
Oh, nice. Wouldn't be a bad choice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm decent at Dutch, and I have the citizenship, so it's like
There seems to be a really growing scene there at the moment. I mean, with the museum finally opening and all the areas coming sort of together, it's really cool, man.
Yeah, and it's just central. You can just get anywhere in Europe so easily.
Great from there.
Yeah, it's just a place I like a lot as well. Like I know it very well. It's the only other place I feel really at home.
Yeah.
So it's like, and America is such a fucking dumpster fire right now that it's like, if it's time to leave for a year or two, at least, it's like now is the fucking, like, this is a joke. Like,
yeah, it's crazy over here, but it's nothing what's happening in your own country at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and like, and then there's just the shit we take for granted as like normally already a joke, right? Like just my whole health insurance, like all that is already like, we take that as just a normal thing. And then you look at other stuff and it's like, oh wait, yeah, I'm paying essentially my rent and health insurance, and that's not normal.
You're almost starting behind it. It's like a disadvantage every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to shit on America, and we do enough ourselves to do it. And I can't say there's not benefits to being an American, right? Like there are great parts about being in America. America's a beautiful place. There's a lot of beautiful people here. You can do a lot of big projects here, right? I remember when Bust came, he was just like, "Yeah, there's so many. Well, the walls are so big. You do so many big walls here. They're all big walls." And I'm like, "Yeah, well,
State to the size of the countries in Europe, it's just crazy."
Right. So it's like there's definitely a lot of big walls, and that's nice. And it's a little more like casual with a lot of things, but the downsides are just they're getting really down,
Oh man. And what would your advice be for other artists, maybe even say in America at the moment, looking to get into street art? Would you have any advice for them?
My constant advice is just like perpetual labor. Just like people are just lazy. I mean, really, like in an art school, like I legitimately believe that like 98% of people in art school are just
Looking for a shortcut.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just all those stereotypes about art students are totally true, right? Like, the vast majority of them are just a complete joke. And it's like, it's not even their fault, but it's just like, you should probably just do something else, right? Like, you can't go to art school and no one's going to give a shit that you got an A in painting, right? Like, no one cares. You have to like make this work for you. And I think a lot of people are just super lazy. They want to get some kind of shortcut to get there. And people are always like, how do you find walls? And I'm like, just take them, one. Or like, just ask, like, how'd you paint that big wall? I literally knocked on the door and asked if I could paint that wall 5 years ago. And they just said, okay. Yeah. Right. And it's like, otherwise go find a bridge or something to figure it out. Like, no one's going to give you wall number one just so you can learn. Right. Like,
exactly. It's a grind.
Right. Like, just do it. like just ask, like, just find a way to do it. If you want to do it, it's not
and put the
crazy. It doesn't take a lot, right? Like, paint, at the end of the day, it's paint and a surface. Like,
I think people get that twisted. I think they think it's somebody knows somebody or they've got an in.
Right, you have to figure out some form. Or I get all the time, is there a permit? I've literally never heard of a mural permit in any city in the world. People ask me that all the time. It's like, what kind of permit do you get for this? And it's like, that doesn't exist as far as I know. Like, I just paint the wall. Like,
as long as
I could see if you were trying to get into like sculpture, you want to sculpt marble or something. I'm sure there's a lot of shit you got to know, and material things and stuff like that, right? Like, I don't think there's any simpler form of art than painting a wall. Like,
sure, for
like
sure.
Paint some kind. You could use a stick and a bucket of paint and find any wall and like paint on it.
Exactly. Do you ever find yourself leaning towards sort of painting with brushes or anything, or is it always going to be spray for yourself?
Every now and then I do canvases on brush. Most of my walls at this point are latex for sure.
Right. Right.
Because I mean, walls that big as well. I mean, I do, for the most part, do pretty big walls. It's just like inefficient to use that much spray paint.
For sure.
And I like the drips. It's
nice.
It's more satisfying to do that. There's spray paint involved in every wall. There's always spray paint always makes an appearance, but most of the walls at this point are primarily latex.
That's cool.
I can definitely do a wall in all spray paint, and I will often. It's just less convenient.
Yeah, exactly.
And then studio wise, I do a couple kind of brush pieces, but it's just yeah. I like the way they feel, but it's just not the same as the stencils. I like the stencils. I like the immaculate detail of it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely, it seems to be working for you as well, man. It working a treat. And as well, talking about street art, and what do you think the future of it is? I mean, it's gone on walls, and how much future do you think there is in painting walls? Do you think it's going to go more augmented reality, or do you think mural fest is still going to be a thing going strong going forwards?
There's always going to be a lot of gimmicks like that, and the augmented reality shit, I just don't care. That just seems so lame. Like, I don't want to. The cool thing about murals is that they're outside, and it's like already in an environment, in a place, right? Like, you're already experiencing this 3D thing because you're outside and there's a bird just flew in front of it and there's trees and people stand, like, it is that already, right? I don't need to augment that reality. I mean, that there's going to be a bunch of, crazy little gimmicky tech things involved. The real question is it just going to get totally corporate or what?
Yeah, you're seeing it in a lot more ads now. Big companies like Apple, Netflix are using it nonstop.
And that's normal. And you can't really stop that. It's just, how much will that affect it, right? Like, I understand people got to make their money, and it's like, I'm not necessarily saying I'm above that, but it's got to be, there's got to be a balance. And like, how much will that start a feedback loop that kind of like affects the art itself, right? Like, so that's something. There's a lot more
confusion. You see the confusion in the public, whether it's a mural or an advert, and everyone's posting it up on social media as murals when it's a company's advert, and they've almost tricked the people into thinking that somebody wanted to paint this big Netflix ad,
Right. And it's like, that's why they did it, and like, that's effective. Don't get me wrong. And there's some really beautiful ads, of course. And like, there were beautiful ads back when, average billboards were literally, some dude out there with a paintbrush painting a billboard. Like, some of that is beautiful. It's just different, right? Like, it's a very nice ad is, at the end of the day, no matter what, it's still an ad, right? Like, it will always be effect.
It doesn't have right.
It'll always be cheaper. Like, Stanley Kubrick can direct your ad, for Lysol, and it's like, it could be absolutely beautiful. And there's some beautiful ads, and especially like TV advertising. Like, there's some of those that are just wildly beautiful.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is this? You know, and then at the end, it's like Levi's, and you're just like, everything's gone. Right immediately out the window, it's just like, oh, I can appreciate the technical parts of it, and it's artisanal, I guess, but it's not art.
No, I totally agree with that. It takes it totally away from it.
Yeah.
And what do you hope the effect that your work would have to people on the street seeing it? What would you hope that the mural affects them in some way, or are you trying to convey a message behind the work to people? Or
they're all kind of different, right? It's every kind of piece you got to take as it comes. Some are I just like to create a mood. Some are just fun, you know. Some are just, I think this is better than a gray wall. A lot of it is like, I just kind of make what I want to make most of the time, right? And it's like, at the end of the day, it's just paint, right? If you don't like it, just paint over it, you know. People attack my stuff. It doesn't happen often, but it's just like, that doesn't bother me. I don't like, that's just part of the game. People get real bent out of shape about that. And she's like, I don't get it. Like, I just don't care. Like,
have you had any really good reactions, just like passers by while you're painting? Somebody that's
and that's been the bulk of my experience. And like, so much of the beauty of doing these things is, especially traveling, is that people are so touched by it. And then people are always, oh, please, you know, come to my house for dinner tonight, or we have to come. You know, I've gone so many of these wild, lovely experiences just from being somewhere and painting in that spot. And it's like, it's a very unique way to travel as well, because it's like, I don't do any of the touristy shit, but I get a very unique perspective of every city, because I truly get to live it largely as a local, right? I show up, I'm staying on some guy gives me his apartment. You know, I get to know one very average corner of Paris very well for like a week, and that's all I get to see, right? So it's like, you get a very authentic slice of Paris in that sense. And then, you know, you just pick stuff up being on a single corner of a single city, you know, a couple days straight, and you get to meet, you know, the characters of that block. And it's just it's very nice. Yeah. And for the most part, I get overwhelmingly positive reactions, and that's always very endearing. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that what keeps you going, keeps you doing it? I mean, what's the drive, or is it just more?
It's largely sport. I think it comes out of the same mindset of graffiti, you know. And I think the people who I like the most in this are people who came out of graffiti. And what's weird is seeing the new crop of people who have no experience with graffiti and like don't know anything about it. And it's like, I really can't wrap my head around that. Like, you just went straight into doing legit murals all the time. Like, and I was like, to me, it's the mindset of graffiti. It's just like, I just want to go, I want that big, and I want it there, and I want it in every city I go to. You know, and it's like, I get that that's like braggadocio to a degree, and kind of like, I can see that being kind of a dick move. I can see people hearing me say that and being like, oh, that's a shame. He should have to consider the residents of that block. And, you know, like going this whole thing. And it's like, I just think it's better than gray walls, man. I just want to put it up. And it's like, if people like it, which they seem to, then great. If they don't, just paint over it. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, that's great. That's wicked, man. That's wicked.
It's just what I do.
Totally, man. Totally. Well, I can't thank you enough for sparing some time, man. It's been great. I've been wanting to chat for a while, and finally getting to meet and talk. Yeah. It's really cool, man. I can't thank you enough for doing that.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Hopefully this time next year, I'll be there, really, you know.
Oh, and even if you're over in Amsterdam, I'll be over, man. Let me know. I love to travel myself, so it'd be great to come and meet in person, and maybe even get some projects going ourselves.
Absolutely, man. I'd love that. Yeah.
Wicked, man. Well, I'm going to leave links to the description so everybody can sort of take a look at your Instagram or website and anything we've spoke about. And there's going to be more of these releasing every week, so just keep your eyes out for more details. But yeah, just thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll catch you next time. All right, bye.
See you, man.